Ebere felt a rush as she fell into Titi's arms again, melting into the familiar warmth and scent that set her heart racing every time. Their bodies moved in sync, each touch, each kiss carrying a thrill she couldn't get enough of. Hours passed in a haze of whispered words, soft laughter, and fiery passion until the walls seemed to hum with the electricity between them. She almost lost track of time until she glanced at the clock, the bright red digits screaming at her. It was late, very late. With a sigh, she pulled herself away, her fingers lingering on Titi's cheek. I have to go, Ebere whispered, glancing around for her scattered clothes. Titi held her hand for a moment, her eyes softening. Can't you stay a little longer? I hate saying goodbye. Ebere gave a sad smile, pulling her hand gently from Titi's. You know I can't. I have classes tomorrow. Titi nodded, understanding as she dressed, getting her keys to drop her off. Ebere sneaked into the corper's lodge a few minutes before 11 p.m., her pulse still racing from the night's excitement. As she tiptoed toward her bed, she was surprised to see Aisha sprawled across it, fast asleep. Her lips curled into a soft smile. This Aisha self, she thought. Lowering herself onto the edge of the bed, Ebere let out a tiny laugh, which must have stirred Aisha because her eyes fluttered open, meeting Ebere's gaze. Where have you been? Aisha asked, her voice groggy but direct as she sat up. Ebere's smile faded, and she quickly tried to brush it off, feigning innocence. Nowhere, oh. I just had to do some things and it took a while, she replied, feeling her face heat up as she searched for a plausible excuse. Aisha didn't look convinced, leaning in closer, almost suspiciously, and then she paused, sniffing the air. You smell like saliva and sweat. Were you exercising? Ebere's eyes widened as she felt a flush of embarrassment wash over her. She jumped to her feet, struggling to keep her voice steady. I'll have my bath now. She quickly grabbed her bathing items, not daring to look back as she rushed off to the bathroom. The cold splash of water helped steady her nerves. Saliva and sweat? She cursed herself for not being more careful. How had Aisha sensed something? When she finally returned, she expected Aisha to be back in her own bed, fast asleep. But there she was, still lying on Ebere's bed, eyes open, almost as if she'd been waiting. Annoyed, Ebere shook her shoulder gently. Aisha, you have your bed now. Why are you sleeping on mine? Now it will be hot, and you left your own to remain cool and nice, she said, trying to inject a teasing tone to mask her unease. Aisha sat up slowly, her expression unreadable. I know where you went to, she murmured. Ebere felt her heart skip. She forced a laugh, though it sounded hollow even to her own ears. What are you talking about? Aisha's eyes didn't waver, a faint sadness seeping into her smile. You and her, you were together today. Her voice was barely a whisper, trembling with something unspoken. Ebere felt the words hit her like a punch. How had Aisha figured it out? Her mind raced, scrambling for a response. But before she could find any, Aisha stood up. Good night, Aisha said softly, her voice carrying an odd finality as she turned, leaving Ebere alone to the silence and her swelling thoughts. Ebere felt alive with Titi. Her visits were a regular highlight, and by Friday evenings, she'd have her bag packed, ready to spend the weekend at Titi's place. There was something magnetic between them that Ebere couldn't put into words. It was exhilarating and comforting at the same time. Sundays, however, brought their own routine. Titi would always nudge her to join her for church service, nudging her gently until Ebere agreed, if only to be near her. But one particular Sunday, Ebere found herself in a different mood as they returned home from church. She glanced at Titi with a smile that spoke volumes. Titi raised an eyebrow, quickly catching on. Ebere, she laughed, gently swatting her hand away. It's Sunday, baby girl. Let's keep the Sabbath day holy. Ebere rolled her eyes, laughing. Come on, Titi. What difference does it make? Titi smiled knowingly, shaking her head. Some things just feel wrong on Sundays. We have 6 other days for this. You're such a hypocrite, Ebere teased, laughing even as she respected Titi's firm, light-hearted refusal. And soon enough, it became their unspoken rule. Sundays were off limits. Ebere didn't fully understand it, but it was a boundary she grew to accept. As the holidays approached, Ebere's phone buzzed with a video call request from her parents. She settled on her bed, answering the call, her mother's face immediately filling the screen. Ebere, her mother greeted warmly. We are all here and we miss you. When are you coming home for Christmas? Ebere chuckled awkwardly, scratching the back of her head. Ah, mommy, you know flights are crazy expensive right now. Her father's voice chimed in from off camera. But it's only 2 weeks, Ebere. It will be a wonderful time with the family. She sighed, shaking her head with a playful smile. It's just 2 weeks, Daddy. Why spend all that money when I can stay with a friend here? I'll be fine, I promise. Her mother looked concerned, but Ebere held her ground. She'd finally tasted a bit of freedom and wasn't ready to let it go, even for the holidays. When the call ended, Ebere looked up to find Aisha leaning against the doorway, watching her. You're not going home for Christmas? Aisha asked, her face softening as she spoke. Ebere shrugged, stuffing her phone back in her pocket. Nope. Aisha's gaze lingered, her voice quiet. Let me guess. You are planning to spend it with Madame Titi. The question made Ebere tense, though she quickly tried to laugh it off. What's it to you? Aisha lowered her gaze, her fingers fiddling with the edge of her clothes. Why don't you come stay with me instead? She looked up, a small hopeful smile tugging at her lips. My family has plenty of room, and it would be nice spending the holiday together. Ebere raised an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. You guys celebrate Christmas. Isn't that a Christian thing? Aisha burst into laughter, shaking her head. My mother is Christian, remember? She's Igbo, just like you. She softened, almost hot. You never listen, do you? Ebere shrugged again awkwardly. Well, I haven't even asked Titi yet. I'll ask her first, and if it doesn't work out, I'll consider it. Aisha's face fell slightly, but she nodded, a longing look clouding her eyes. All right, she replied softly. Ebere took a deep breath as she looked at Titi, her hands trembling slightly. Dinner had seemed like the perfect time to bring up her holiday plans, but now Titi's reaction had caught her completely off guard. I have good news, Ebere began, trying to keep her voice steady as she scooped some pap and took a bite of akara. Titi's eyes narrowed, looking at her cautiously. What's that? She asked, her tone laced with suspicion. Ebere beamed, expecting the same enthusiasm from Titi. My parents said it's okay for me to stay back, so I'll be moving in here with you for the holidays. Instead of the excitement she hoped for, Titi's face fell. Ebere's smile wavered. You should have asked me first before running off to ask your parents that, Titi replied, her voice cold and clipped. Ebere blinked, stunned. I I don't understand. Titi's eyes flashed with irritation. Ebere, I'm a married woman. I have a husband and a son. How many times do I have to repeat it for you to understand? I'm going back to the capital to celebrate Christmas with them. You can't stay here because I won't be here. I'll be with my family, as you should be with yours. Ebere's heart sank. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The Titi in front of her felt like a stranger. Titi threw her napkin onto her plate and stood up abruptly. I'm not hungry anymore thanks to you. You have a real knack for making things awkward. Her voice was sharp. Please, when you are done, see yourself back to school. I'm going to my room to rest my head. Ebere stared at Titi's retreating back, feeling a lump in her throat. She had thought this would be a joyful conversation, a chance to bond. How wrong she was. That evening, she lay on her bed, tears slipping silently down her cheeks as she tried to stifle her sobs. But Aisha noticed. She shuffled over to Ebere's bed, her voice gentle but curious. What happened, Ebere? Ebere wiped her tears with the back of her hand. She doesn't really love me. She's just playing with my feelings, she whispered, fresh tears threatening to spill. Aisha paused, hesitating, but then put a comforting hand on Ebere's shoulder. Oh, Ebere, you'll be fine. Just take a warm bath, okay? And don't worry, you can always come and stay with me for Christmas. Ebere managed a small smile, grateful for Aisha's kindness. Thank you, Aisha. Aisha patted her back, then got up to prepare hot water. She handed Ebere her towel. Here, go and take a bath. It will help. Later, as Ebere lay in bed, she found herself unable to sleep. She tossed and turned, then eventually got up and walked over to Aisha's bed. The room was quiet and her other roommates were fast asleep. She nudged Aisha gently. Can I stay with you? I can't sleep. Aisha made space for her, nodding as Ebere lay beside her. They lay in the darkness, each wrapped in their own thoughts, until Ebere felt Aisha's hand brush against her accidentally. Sorry, Aisha whispered, pulling her hand back. But Ebere reached out and took Aisha's hand, pulling it back gently. It's okay. I think it'll help me sleep. They lay there in silence, a quiet connection forming in the dark, with only the soft chirping of crickets outside. The next morning, Ebere's phone chimed while she was wrapping up her classes. She glanced at the screen and her heart skipped a beat. It was a message from Titi. I'm so sorry, baby girl. I lost my temper yesterday and I don't even know why. There's nothing wrong with you coming to spend Christmas with us in the capital. I'll pick you up after classes today. See you soon. Ebere felt a lump form in her throat as she read the message. Blinking back tears, she quickly rounded up her class and made her way back to the lodge. When she arrived, Aisha was already there, beaming. I can't wait for you to see my place. We'll have so much fun together. Ebere lowered her gaze, feeling a mix of guilt and shame. The plan with Titi remains, she mumbled, her voice barely audible. Aisha's smile faltered, though she quickly masked it. Oh, that's okay. Ebere offered her a small smile. I'm really sorry, Aisha, for everything. I don't know what came over me yesterday. You're a good friend, and I'm grateful for you. Aisha forced a smile in return, but a trace of pain lingered in her eyes. Of course, Ebere. Anytime. Ebere quickly changed, gave Aisha a grateful nod, and then went off in search of Titi, unsure of what the day would bring, but hoping that the warmth she once felt with Titi could be restored.